Okay, so let's talk about Rapise, and we've got the top features or the top 10 features of why you should use Rapise or why Rapise is a great tool. First of all, and why maybe when using other tools, you may run into issues that Rapise has figured out. First thing is Rapise is a codeless automation tool, not just a framework. So one of the challenges we see from a lot of clients is that they have to maintain a framework. So someone comes along, builds a great framework using JavaScript or Java or .NET or Python, and it's a great framework. It's all in their head. They love it. And then as soon as they move on to some other project or leave the company, it's someone else's problem, and their maintenance becomes a nightmare. And we see this all the time. People are coming all the time to us with, we built this automation framework. It's unmaintainable. How do we keep it running now that the inventor has moved on or gone? And so that is a huge challenge with test automation in general. And Rapise makes this much easier because, first of all, it's codeless. So it reduces the barriers to entry to actually having the skills to do test automation. It makes maintenance much easier by a business user, but also it's a tool supported by a vendor. So we're here to help you out, and we can train your users. We've got training videos. So when people move on to different careers or different places in the company, we've got your back to help you maintain the test automation. And it comes with some nice features to make maintenance easier, including self-healing tests and smart locators. The second thing with test automation is, making sure it can cover all the applications that you need, because you may have lots of different applications that you'll be testing. And do you want to have a separate framework or a separate application for every single app you're testing? Do you want to have your teams having to learn a tool for web, a tool for desktop, a tool for mobile? Maybe you're going to be testing a complex web app that has, we'll see some of these like Salesforce, Shadow DOM, and you could use a separate tool just for those. Or do you want to have one platform where you can use it for a bunch of different technologies? And that way you can actually learn one tool, maintain one tool, have training on it, and then you can use it across a variety of different applications. And as people come to different applications, they bring it to us. We extend our support for those applications from our users' feedback and suggestions. Number 3 would be, it's all very well to have the testing set up, but how are you going to manage the testing and run those tests once they've been created? So Rapise has integration with the SpiraTest test management tool, and I'll be showing you a little bit of that today in the webinar. And that simplifies the actual execution and tracking and reporting of testing versus having to build a custom solution. We've seen clients where they'll build something using like a Git repository, they'll get some batch scripts, they'll get some pipelines, they'll get some reporting tool they built together using some open source frameworks. And you can do obviously a lot of this yourself, but you've got to build and maintain that. And again, when that person moves on, it all goes away. So when you need enterprise reporting and distributed testing and the ability to do that at scale, SpiraTest together with Rapise gives you that out of the box. Number 4, when you've got business users in particular who want to be able to build tests, you don't necessarily want to have a programmer or an automation engineer, building simple scripts where you're recording tests, verifying actions, verifying data on the screen. Rapise does that very simply without a lot of formal automation experience. But when you do have more experienced people on the team, it doesn't frustrate them because they can also extend with code when they need. So it gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you the ability to have a codeless framework, which for simple test automation, a business user could do. But once you get into more complex scenarios, your automation engineers can extend what they're doing with code, with more complex automation scenarios with frameworks, reusability, building an automation framework that's going to basically be maintainable as opposed to just a bunch of recorded scripts. So it gives you the best of both worlds. Of course, you have to run in different browsers. We can support different browsers, different mobile devices. We can support both physical devices. So I'm going to be showing you today scripts running on my physical machine just for ease of demonstration using Chrome and Firefox. We also support IE, Edge, Safari, and Opera. But you can use virtual devices, so it could be Browser Stack or Cobaton or Source Labs, one of the device farms which again exist. You can use those. If you've got an in-house device network using Selenium, Grid, or Appium, you can use that. If you want to use a physical device, you can even plug it into your machine, or you can use a cloud-based device for the mobile testing as well. Number 7, we try in Rapise separating the test and the test scenario from the objects in the application. So you can basically build a test scenario with different actions and different operations, and then the objects that you're interacting with, so these will be the buttons, the grids, the different UI elements, and also API elements, they're separated out from the test script. So that way, when you have to record a script or modify a script, you can easily remap the objects to when they've changed. And B, those objects can be shared across different test scripts. So you don't have to record everything every single time. You can have a library of common elements that then different tests can use. And we have an object manager that makes that really easy as well. Number 8, when you have to modify things, both modifying the script is really easy. You can just use the table editor that you can see right here. You can record parts of a script and update it in line. And if you have to remap an object, you can use the relearn feature to simply flash it to see if it exists still, relearn it if it doesn't. Number 9, as well as UI testing, which is the focus of Rapise, it is primarily a UI testing tool. It does have API support, so it can send REST requests, it can send SOAP requests, and can verify the data back. And this is really useful when you want to do a combined API UI test. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, there's a couple of different options. One is you might be getting test data from an API that you want to then use to test user interface. So that's a common use case. Another possibility is for an RPA, where you're moving data from one system to another. One system has an API, one system doesn't. You get the data from the API from one system, and you use RPA to put the data into the other system through its UI. A third use case would be you want to test a complex AJAX app, and you're going to be testing the service layer and the UI rendered layer on top of the what's data coming back from the web service. So the web service sends you data, and like a React control is then going to render that onto a grid. Well, you could test the grid, which is great. You also might want to test the UI and test the data coming back from the UI before it gets rendered. So you can have more complex scenarios like that with different support for different layers in the stack. And 10, as I mentioned earlier on when we talked about distributed testing, people always want to know what's going on in real time. So the integration with SpiraTest gives you that real-time enterprise reporting across all the different test activities that you're doing, and you can tie those automated scripts back to your requirements for requirements test coverage as part of your quality metrics. So that's the, before we get into the demo, just to mention of some of the platforms as well as the features, we have robust support for all the major web platforms. We can do the different browsers that I mentioned, i.e. Edge, Firefox, Chrome, and Safari. You can record in one, play back in the other. That's an example of Dynamics 365 that you can see there. We can do mobile apps, both physical and virtual, both native and mobile web, iOS and Android. For desktop apps, which still make up a large part of the testing service that people are doing, we can test Windows apps, we can test Java apps, Swing, Qt, .NET, AWT, SWT. We can also do Oracle Forms, Oracle Fusion, Oracle ERP. We've also got support for some of the common components. We can also do hybrid apps. So we've got some clients that we're looking at effectively embedded browsers where you have, it's like Microsoft Teams does this. It's a desktop app, but inside it is the Chromium browser running in a browser in a desktop container. A lot of testing tools can't talk to the browser inside the desktop container. Rapise can do that as well. We can also, because we have desktop and web, we can even test some things where you're going to be like downloading a file from a browser and you're actually using the browser functions, not the web app functions, and then uploading. So we can do some of those use cases that you can't do in some of the pure browser testing tools as well. As I mentioned, we do have the support for web services, both REST and SOAP. This is just a sample form. And of course, we do have a lot of users that are using these large applications. The common ones will be Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, Oracle, and SAP. And we have built-in specialized support for those applications. During today's demo, I won't be showing those. That will be the focus of a separate demo. Each one of those takes a while to set up and build the test data for. But Rapise has built-in libraries that handle Salesforce, different flavors of Dynamics, CRM, Dynamics ERP, AX, and Nav, as well as Salesforce Lightning and Classic, ServiceNow, and also the web components SAP. And in 2023, we'll be adding support for SAP GUI as well, which is sort of the last piece of the puzzle, as it were. And of course, not as common, but still useful occasionally. Sadly, a lot of apps are still terminal mainframe apps. When you hear about airline reservation systems going down or banking applications going down, in many cases, they are still using AS400 or other terminal-based applications. These apps were built in the 70s using COBOL, but they work and they're doing critical applications. Rapise can connect to a terminal emulator. We've got some different examples of those, Java and Windows, JavaScript-based typically, and we can then automate the interacting of data and the reading of the text from a terminal app.